I'll read the hearing and we'll start it.
Sure.
It's already 5 minutes in Hawkins' time. Okay, perfect. So I'll do the hearing notice and then Valerie can take a roll call. So in close of now, chapter 48, section 11, notice is hereby given that the Bolton Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, April 12th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom video communications to hear and act upon the application of Southerly Smith and Gillis Gonzalez. The applicant seeks a variant to construct a garage at 76 Quaker Lane at Bolton's residential zoning district on Assessors Map 2C, Parcel 85. The applicant seeks partial relief from the 50-foot side yard setback pursuant to section 250-13B of the Code of Town of Bolton bylaws. The public hearing will be conducted via remote participation pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, which is Master Law, Chapter 8, Section 18. So with that, I'm going to do a roll call, Valerie, and then we can have the applicant present their application.
Sure. Brad Reed,
Here.
Brian Holmes,
Here.
Gerard Ahern,
President,
Gabrielle Lamano,
Here.
and Liz Hutchins.
Here.
all right. So I guess with Andy not present at the time being, we should probably designate Gabriella as the its only member on this application. So do we need a motion and a vote on that, or is that just designated?
You can have a vote on that.
Okay. So,
So we
do it, Brian.
motion, so I will motion to have Gabrielle Lamano be a voting member for this. What is the exactly
Application.
for this application?
Second.
Thanks, Liz. All right.
And those in favor, Brad Reed,
Aye.
Brian Holmes,
Aye.
Gerard Ahern,
Aye.
and Elizabeth Hutchins.
Aye.
Perfect. Thanks. Okay. So if the applicant can give us a walkthrough of the presentation and or their variance application, and we can ask questions once it's been presented.
Yeah, so I'm not really familiar with this process, so you have to bear with me here. I actually doing this on my iPhone because my computer would not log me in. So we basically are looking to build a garage, which is designed as a garage as opposed to the storage shed, which was permitted and was really at the location where we want to build a garage. So it's pretty close to our house. And you have all the drawings in the application. Unfortunately, I cannot pull this up from my phone. So I know there's the link to the file in what Valerie set up. So we had the lot surveyed, and the drawings have been done by the person who did the surveying. And you can see that one corner of the garage actually encroaches on the 50-foot setback that we have with the property line. There is, if you could see, oh, thank you. Yes. And there we go. So the garage is right off the existing driveway, right by the house. And I'm not sure exactly what else you would like me to describe, so I could better speak about
In
this.
in the variance application, there are 4 key components that we need to address as part of the zoning board to be able to grant a variance. So we need to know first, like, what are the circumstances that exist relating to either the soil condition, shape, or topography of your land, and unique that sort of factor into why the garage would have to be there, or could it be somewhere else within your property line that would allow it to be done with different zoning. Also, if we were to not approve it, what hardship from that enforcement would that happen to you, either financial wise, or with regard to the desired relief? The third item that we have to always address is can why the desired relief can't happen without creating like a detriment to the public, or why the desired relief can be granted without nullifying from our bylaws. So just talked a little bit about the shape of your land, but we sort of need to know more about what makes it so unique. If you could slide it, is it possible that it could be done in currents and things like that? Also, if I saw some pictures, but I didn't see anything about the actual garage itself. Like, do you have any actual renderings of what you think you're going to build, or has it been designed yet, or anything like that?
So the lot shape is really I would say conventional, if you look at it. And when you see where the house is located versus the lot, it's at the lower end, or whatever end you want to call it, but it's on one end of the property, and it makes it geometrically impossible to fit a garage without impinging on the 50-foot line right of the existing driveway and close to the house. This is just as close to the house as it can be, and so no matter which, and the orientation that we chose so that it fits at the end of the driveway is the one that impedes the least on the 50-foot setback. If the house had been built in a different location and the lot was shaped differently, because the lot is large enough, yes, of course, it could have been somewhere else. But we purchased the house last year, and obviously we haven't built this, we haven't designed it. It was like this, and as I mentioned, actually there was a shed that had been permitted at that specific location, but the shed is too small. We cannot park a car in the shed. Actually, we had the shed removed, and our need for the garage is really to be able to park a car. The house as a garage, as you may see on the photo, but it's very small, and my husband's car actually does not fit in the garage. So there is a problem there. So that's why we're seeking this, and we haven't found any alternative to propose that would not require this variance. As far as the design goes, So we're looking at a pretty standard garage. We would have it the same color as the the rest of the house. It will be built because it's too big to be a purchase of the street, and anyway it requires foundation and to be put down. So the contractor is going to build the garage, but it's a standard shape garage. I
a
have a
rendition of that?
drawing.
Mhm.
Yeah, we have a drawing of the front, which just shows basically the door for the car going into a rectangle garage. So that's all we have
Does it show
there.
it's a one-story, or is it like, does it show the dimensions of what it'll be?
Yeah, the dimensions are on the drawing itself there. It is a one story. There is nothing above the car beside the roof of the garage. I should remember the dimension of the garage exactly, but of course I do not. I was really unsure what the conversation was going to be tonight, so I'm sorry. I'm probably not as prepared as I should be, but so that's what I can share. Actually, if my phone doesn't lose signal, I'm going to walk upstairs and pull my drawing here with the dimension, so I can read them to you. They're marked on the map.
Did you send us a picture of what the garage would look like?
I don't have a picture because it's not something we're going to buy prefabricated. It's going to be fabricated by the contractor. Let me see here. Give me a second. I'm flipping to the
Contract have a rendition of what they will be building?
I can, let me see. I have just this. I'm going to take a photo right now. And if there is a email or someplace where I can pass it on to you, I'm glad to do that. But it's not very, not sure it's going to be very, very telling.
Okay. So
You
then-
can, sorry, I was just gonna say, you can feel free to send it over to me and I can share it. So it's, the email address is the one I've been using to correspond, townplanner@townofbolton.com.
Yes, okay. I see you. I'm sending this to you right now, Valerie.
Okay, thank you.
Again, it's pretty it's not very detailed, but that's what I have to share. It shows the mostly the material of constructions. I just emailed it to you.
Yes, I'm seeing it now. My computer is very low tech, so it shows JPEGs as videos. So I apologize if this comes out a little strange. Let me see.
And the dimension of the garage, the external measurement are 16 by 30.
And the property line that you're encroaching upon, have you talked to your abutter? Has your abutter had any communication about whether they're favorable to the
So we've,
structure?
yeah, so we've spoken to the family that lives. So if you can picture this, we have a pretty long shared driveway with 5 other houses. So the one house that sees our house is the one that is in front of us across the driveway. So yes, they're fully aware. They have no issue with this. They're number 74, we're number 76. The other side of the house, we actually do not even know them. They're not very close to us. They don't access through Quaker Lane. They access through, I think it's Millbrook. So it's really pretty remote, from each other, and we're not in the same traffic zone neither, because of the way the property line is and the accesses are to those houses.
On one of the pictures that you submitted with the application, where that looks like the garage would be, you could see like a house through the trees or something. So I didn't know what the that abutter had any concern with it.
Right. Those people, I cannot tell you. I don't know their names. We don't know them. For them, it would be seeing pretty much where the shed was. But no, we haven't, walked around into their street and asked them anything at this point in time.
Valerie, have you received any correspondence from any abutters questioning, the fact that it would be closer to the lot line than the normal standard?
No, I haven't heard anything back, but I did, of course, send out the public hearing notices. I think it's interesting. I know that one of the plans that was submitted kind of shows a bit of how odd the lot shape is, but if I could just share also a more full map to kind of give you a better picture of this lot and what's going on here. So the lot is technically a backland lot, but it's very it's quite strange. So all these so all of the homes, the reason why her home, the applicant's home, is along kind of the what appeared as the far end of the lot is because it's actually closer to the neighbors and the shared driveway that goes off. Does the driveway go off of Millbrook, or does it in fact?
No, the driveway goes back Quaker Lane.
Okay, so it's coming up from the south. So it's definitely a unique situation.
Right. So you couldn't, I mean, to that point, right? The house is where it is. It's been situated. It's there. So it's not like with that lot, if they didn't have a variance, they couldn't put it probably anywhere else. So that it would associate with land, that would probably be a condition of a hardship, like that. Does anyone else from the board have a question, what's been presented, or do you need any additional information?
A question I had, George, is you asked it, but I want to clarify. So in the pictures, you can see a house, but that is not the house that's in question of the setback, right? It's a different property that's within the 50 feet. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not sure which picture that was.
So there's one.
I guess my point is you had mentioned that the neighbor that was within the 50-yard buffer didn't have an issue with it, but the neighbor in the picture said you didn't know them, but it doesn't. I guess it's kind of a moot point if they're not within the 50-yard buffer.
So when the abatter list was created, there were like I don't know a number exactly, 18, I believe, of them. So I'm not sure who is who in that list exactly. The people that see the house definitively clearly are those that with whom we share that long driveway, and we are at the end of the driveway, that family and us, and they're right across from us. So those ones definitively see the garage. We know them very well. They're completely okay with this. If you need a letter from them, I'm sure they are more than willing to provide whatever is needed.
Yeah,
And
letter would
as
be
I said, their
helpful.
number is 74 Quaker Lane.
So Valerie, on some of the photos that were provided, there's one where it looks like you're looking at the driveway to where the garage would be, and you can see, if you can bring that one up, because then you can see a house in the background. Maybe that will prompt her to confirm if that's the house she's talking about, 74, or is that a different property? And is that's closest to her lot line?
Okay, so thanks for sharing the photos.
Yeah, that one right there.
So this
sort of see a house.
So this one is, the house itself is definitively way farther than 50 foot.
But is the property
and that's the one that we do not know them. So I don't have any feedback on how they feel about it.
But is that the one where the property line where the setback would be within the 50? Is that the most impacted abutter potential?
I believe they are.
Okay. Yeah. So,
because specifically of that weird shape that Valerie showed, that yellow serpentine line.
mm-hmm. So potentially that would be the abutter that we want to make sure they don't have a concern. So if you had a way to see if they could document that, even if it's an email to Valerie,
Okay.
Saying there's no issue, that would be great.
Okay, we can introduce ourselves to them and ask them the question.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Because the garage would actually be where the car is that you see.
Right, but yeah, extending out back and right, I understand that, right? But that's where, when I first saw it, I said, okay, I see it. There's, at least optically, there's a house relatively close, and if we're encroaching on that person's lot line, they may have particularly where there's a view where you can see through them. Now you put up a garage, it's 30 by 60. I don't know what the height is, and then people may say, oh, I have a turn or not, so. We just want to be sure that, when we say one of the items on the application is we don't want to do something that's detrimental to the public good. If there were abutters that were really concerned that it was going to be a problem, then that would go against, potentially permanent granting it, because, maybe it wouldn't be for the public good, but, so we just want to be sure that we can, cover our bases if and when we have to create a decision on this application.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. For the board members, for purposes, if we were to, we probably won't be able to make a decision tonight, in that the rules we've been operating by, normally we have to vote a decision document with our, when we close the hearing. So Valerie probably wouldn't have that available for tonight. So if we continue the hearing, we could make sure that we could get additional support if there's an abutter that wants to, opine that they have no concern. If people think that the drawing we have, then that's great. And then that would give Valerie, she could draft up a decision, and then we could vote in motion to either approve or deny at that next hearing.
Yeah, I would like to at least get input from people who might be impacted,
Right.
how,
Mhm.
so it'd be great to have letters from them or some kind of feedback from them. And
Mhm.
additionally, I'd like to see a more complete drawing of the structure that's going in. Just so we have something on the record
Right.
to
So for the
go to.
applicants, right, so for the applicants' benefit, oftentimes when we have a decision on a variance that involves a structure, we have something where we can condition it upon being in substantial conformity to what's being presented to us, so that if it's just open, we're saying you can build something and then it turns into something that people say, wow, we didn't think it was going to look like that, or, so we try to have something that we can state it would be a reasonable facsimile of what will be ultimately cited in that spot. So Val, do you have a calendar? We I don't know when our next hearing is scheduled for another applicant. We have another night, but when's our next 40? When's our next?
Yeah, it looks like the next hearing that we have already scheduled is on Monday, May 9th. That one is scheduled for 6 p.m. So I don't know if we're able to meet at 5:30 or, earlier than 6, or if we should look to another date.
I guess I'd ask the board first to see if their availability for something at 5:30, but if not, we'll have to do another date.
Is there, what is the hearing about? Is there any chance of doing it after the main business of that hearing, or is that going to be?
That one, yeah, that one is Mallard Lane. So I'm terrible at figuring out how long our meetings will take, but I'm assuming that's going to be a longer one.
Yeah, probably at least an hour, because they're trying to, that if you call, put a push on the applicant to, now that he believes he has the plan sort of firmed up, that now he's trying to get caught up, so that we keep asking for an extension. At some point we're going to have to get to a conclusion on that one. So it probably will be a regular state, or or probably a full hour and a half to 2 hours.
I'm good with 5:30 on the 9th.
That's fine for me too.
Okay, that's 3.
Yeah, I guess I can do 5:30.
Okay, how about you, Gabriella?
That's good for me.
Okay. So why don't we have a motion to continue it till May 9th at 5:30, and then the applicant can work on getting that additional documentation, submit it to Valerie by email. She can distribute it to us so we can have seen it and be ready to hit the road running at 5:30.
Yes, can I ask you a question, because this is in
Sure.
1 month. So if I can get the documents, which I understand to be a more detailed drawing of the garage and a letter from the neighbor that is on that side in advance, is there any way to get a decision any sooner? Because the reason I'm asking is, obviously, how contractors are busy and how difficult it is to get them scheduled. And so I'm looking toward trying to be able to get this going so that we can have this in place.
Yeah, we have to also look at the resources, like our town planner, Valerie. She have to work on a decision document, so you have to create that, draft that. So we have to factor in what her availability is as well, because she's she assists our board, but also she's town planner and she does a host of other things. So I don't want to. I'd have to hear from her, and then we'd have to decide if there's a date available. But I think the 9th may be the best date.
I could meet earlier if others are available. Let me just take a look. It might be possible. I know that at least one of you doesn't like Wednesdays. So I was about to say next Wednesday, the 20th or the 21st could work.
Yeah, that doesn't work for me.
Okay.
And then we get the town meetings coming up. You know, I think there's going to be a lot on your plate, Barry. I think maybe the 9th. I mean, well, you know, may just be the best time.
I could do the 25th in the evening, or the 26th in the evening as well. So that's a Monday or a Tuesday. But if those don't work, then I think it is the 9th.
I could do the 25th.
I could do that Monday too. The Tuesday's out, but the Monday is fine.
Yeah, I can do that Monday.
Gabriella, the 25th on Monday, would that work?
Yes, that works if it's at 6.
At 6? Okay. All right. So I can make it. I can be available. I'm sure I'll make myself available. But so we have a motion for that, and then we'll you know, we'll continue to.
Yeah, I really appreciate the efforts here. Thank you very much for accommodating us. I will make sure that we get those documents to you before that, so you can review them.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah, that's great.
So we have a motion to continue to April 26th at 6 p.m.
I will motion to continue the hearing to April 25th at 6 p.m.
This is
Second.
25th and 26th. Valerie, just to be
25th, right?
25th. Yep,
Perfect. Okay,
25th.
thanks. I wrote down 26, so that's good.
And so those in favor, Brad Reed,
Aye.
Brian Holmes,
Aye.
Gerard Ahern,
Aye.
Elizabeth Hutchins,
Aye.
and Gabriella Mano.
Aye.
Right.
All
Good.
right.
So we'll reconvene on April 25th at 6 p.m.
Sounds good.
All right. Perfect. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so we'll run right over to the next hearing. We're a few minutes late, but we'll be able to just start the road. So,
Okay, I'm leaving you guys.
okay. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. All right. So, sorry for being a little late to the 580 Main Street applicant and his team, and anyone else waiting. We'll start the continuation for the from the 16/2022 hearing for the Alta and Neshoba Valley rental housing development. The proposed location at 580 Main Street. So with that, I know our March 16th hearing, we had a letter from Joe Pisnola, who's the ZBA's peer review consultant, dated 4/8. We also had a letter from the engineering company, TEC, dated 4/8, which was a response to the traffic engineer's peer review letter. And we received yesterday a host of revised plans and some related materials. So hopefully we can discuss all those items tonight. I know Joe Pisnola has a commitment at some point during our hearing for another meeting he's in. So if Joe could maybe take some time and give us a presentation of his status letter, and then we'll go from that to the applicant team member, and then we'll have question and answers.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. How are you? Good evening, everyone. We, so I think the biggest item on my list was the original select board special permit for the commercial development. And the original request by the applicant to waive certain conditions that were contained within that decision. A lot of the conditions were relative to negotiated items that the developer at that time had made with the select board, many of which revolved around public access to the site and its critical connection point between town parcels and the schools and community gardens and other assets. I had originally recommended that that they go back to the select board to modify the original special permit because it needed to stay alive, needed to still be a document because there still will be a commercial component to the project, and that they should move on that. The applicant has been doing a lot of work, and I won't speak for them, but a lot of work with the select board and trying to untangle this. It appears that since the original decision, the special permit granting authority has been changed, and it's now falls under the planning board. So the select board didn't feel that they no longer had the authority to modify any kind of a decision. So I think there was discussions between the applicant's council and your town council, and ultimately the collective decision was to come back to square one and to ask the board, this board, your board, to grant waivers from those conditions as they pertain to the subject 40B. And they feel that is appropriate and within your jurisdiction. I think what needs to be done to make sure that your decision and granting of those waivers doesn't traipse upon any remaining public access that has to occur between the commercial parcel, the roadway in, and the back town parcels and the community garden and the connection to the schools. There needs to be some kind of a condition in which that access will be maintained. That access will be memorialized in some kind of an easement document between now and the start of construction. And I'm sure that working with Valerie, working with the select board, and working with town council and the applicant's team, we can all put our heads together and come up with a condition that wraps all that up. And then the applicant has committed to investigate modifications to the plan to make sure that access is viable. It's the grades are such, there's pathways that are at least set up for. There is a sensitivity to what can and can't be done within the well zone 1 area. So there's some complexities there that the applicant will have to at least in the guise of making modifications to the plans within the public hearing process, present to the board, okay, these are our ideas of how we maintain that access. At least to the degree that any of those conditions need to be rolled into your decision through these conditions that have to do with this public access, we could button that up in the coming weeks to do that. I think other than that, there are just obviously remaining peer review open items. I think traffic is further along than civil engineering. I understand the plans that were delivered yesterday are mainly architectural, and the site plan revisions are forthcoming. There's also a comprehensive summary that Valerie did of her comments and a compilation of other boards and departments. I think the board should definitely ask for a comprehensive response to that letter, because there's a lot in that warrants formal response, formal written response. So I think the applicant still has a lot of homework to do, and get us to that point. But I think they were somewhat stalled by this back and forth with the select board, and I believe that there's, as I've just described, there's a pathway forward, and they can get on to the kind of the details and the minutia of responding to all of the open peer review items and the departmental and boards and commission input, so that we can see what this project is going to look like in its next evolution.
Did you also address the ANRAD was filed or on this project?
Yeah, and it's my understanding ANRAD was filed. I don't know if an ORAD was issued. Maybe the applicant can update the board on the progress there.
Right. So Joe, with that, so Val, what's our current statutory date on this project?
Sorry.
Joe, have it?
Yeah, I've just got it here. It's I think we need to ask the applicant for an extension. It's May 6th.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that at least an extension to the middle of July. The schedule that I've kind of put forth is today there'll be some presentation of the applicant of any revised plans, update on the select board, any updates on civil engineering, traffic peer review, and town comment input, update on the status of the NRAD. Then in the May meeting, I think that's going to be a lot of cleanup on peer review issues that are still open, and town comment items that are issued. And then the board can get into maybe some beginnings of condition formulation, especially with that has to do with this public access pieces. Begin to review the list. Then in June, you're really cleaning up and looking at the framework of a draft decision. So that I think pushes us into having the deadline sometime in July.
Either within that May and June timeframe, we'd also have to do a deep dive, or at least a review of each of the requested waivers, so that we can on those.
Absolutely, and the applicant,
each one of them versus in one at a time, so that we didn't miss something.
Yeah, and I note in my April 8th letter that the applicant still owes us an updated waiver list. That's going to come out of plan changes and response to their review.
Okay. So I appreciate that update, Joe. Anyone from the board have any questions of Joe or Valerie? Have any questions?
I have a quick question, Joe. How does this resolve? I know I'm not totally comfortable yet with the idea that this board has the legal authority to do this. So I guess when is the the determinative decision being made that this can be handed to us, I guess, for the modification of the special permit?
Well, I think the cleanest way to do that, make sure it's on the record. I mean, I've had phone conversation with Attorney Horowitz. I have not talked directly to Amy about this, but Debbie says that she has had correspondence. I think that maybe if Debbie could put that in a letter to the board, just kind of summarizing their position and restating their request for waiver of those conditions. And then Amy could put something responding to that in writing. So now we've got the applicant's legal opinion, your legal opinion in the record, and we know that the board's in a strong position to make those, showing that you have the authority to make that decision. You're not, I believe it's true. It's correct after the discussions that I've had, because you're not impacting by granting the subdivision and granting the comprehensive permit. You are impacting that original decision. You're taking a piece of land out of it. So all you're doing is taking the next step in taking these certain conditions that did affect the entire parcel and removing them from as they apply to the 40B parcel. You have no jurisdiction and no ability to do anything to the remaining parcel, and the special permit there would stay in full force and effect unless that commercial owner went back to the planning board now for a modification to that special permit.
That would be stay within the planning board purview, because it would be modification to special permit for the Condyne owned property versus the 580 main.
And I suspect that they have to go back. They have to go to planning. They're going to modify that site. They're going to tear down a piece of the building. They're going to rearrange the parking. They're going to update the landscaping. And I would imagine they're going to trigger some requirement to go back to site plan review. And at that time, if they choose to modify any of the original conditions of that special permit, it would be within the purview of the planning board to do that. Now that the special permit granting authority has moved over to the planning board.
Right, and so because it's back with the planning authority for that 40B purposes, the part that relates to 40B would fall under our purview, because all boards sort of assume under zoning for the 40B purposes.
That's the legal there. Yeah.
That's the legal. Okay, perfect.
And I just want to be clear, if I might, Joe, I've been talking with town council at
Debbie,
Merrick O'Connell.
not to interrupt, can you just identify yourself for other people that don't know who you are?
Sure, I'm Debbie Horowitz. I'm representing the applicant on this. So I've been talking with town council at Merrick O'Connell, because that's who the select board, who Don and Valerie turned to for help on this issue of what to do about this old special permit.
Okay, so I think we should wrap Amy in because she's counsel to the ZBA, and to the degree we got to just make sure that everyone's comfortable in it and the record's complete.
So are we talking Amy Questle?
Amy Questle. Yeah.
Okay, because she doesn't know anything about this issue. We haven't talked to her about it at all.
Okay, that was my misunderstanding. That's who you were dealing with. So who at Merrick O'Connell were you dealing with?
Bob, whose last name, Valerie, I'm forgetting as we speak.
I have not been introduced to Bob. I know that our another council had to recuse himself. So yes, is it Reinhardt maybe?
Well,
or?
Brian Falk, I think is a person who had to recuse himself. And his partner, Bob, whose last name, I'm sorry, I'm just forgetting, is the one who Don asked to look into this issue, and the person I've been talking with. So I could do it either way. If the ZBA would rather bring in another council, it would just be starting from scratch. So it might be.
No, I think it's fine as long as the board is getting counsel that's representing the town. So here, I think that's appropriate.
You're right, Valerie, it's Bob Gibbons. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we can do that.
Perfect. Okay, so anyone else have any questions for Joe? Because Joe, you have another commitment you have to leave at some point, correct?
I do, around 7:30, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so we're getting close to that point, so maybe we're all set for your services for tonight, and we can turn it over to Ken, and they can speak to the new materials that have come in since the last hearing. As I said, we know there was the engineering, the traffic peer review letter response. There was some new materials, and if there's anything else that they would like to speak about, that'd be great.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Jim Lambert, Managing Director
Jim.
for Food Partners.
How are you, Jim?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I'm well.
Good to see everybody again.
Likewise.
Mr. Pesnola did a great job, I think, summarizing a lot of the items. So, but I'll start by just restating a few, if you don't mind, like I did last time, to try to set the table, and then we'll get into a presentation of some updated plans.
Sure.
So as stated, there were architectural revised plans, elevations, and renderings submitted yesterday to the town. Hopefully folks have had a chance to look at those. We are going to go through those tonight. That'll be next up. Written responses to the traffic peer review were submitted on Friday. So I think that was mentioned already as well. Civil written responses have not been submitted, but we are prepared to discuss those at a higher level tonight. I think Phil is with us from tonight from Allen and Major and can walk through that, and then we'll follow up with written responses quickly. Phil can also touch on the status of the ANRAD that is in process, and he can give a quick update as to where we stand with that when his turn comes around. I think one thing Mr. Pesnola did not touch on is the A&R that is still in the works. My understanding from the current owner at Condon is that should be submitted this week.
What was that point there, Jim?
A&R plan?
Yep.
Yeah. Next one on my list was the old special permits, which we'll skip because we just talked about that in detail. There were obviously some discussions there at the end regarding field access and those, and how those relate to the old special permits, but also I think that discussion is a bit broader than that as well, in terms of access to the playing fields and the community gardens. And my understanding is that the town is still under discussion about the preference on what to do there. So in some ways we're waiting, in a lot of ways we're waiting for feedback from the town so that we can discuss the town's proposal and in favored option, and then we can respond to that accordingly and have that discussion from there before finalizing a condition. And then finally, Mr. Pesnola did touch on this. So I am working on a full written response to the town comment. There's sort of been a multi-layered town comment that's been growing over the course of the hearings. It is pretty robust. I'm working on a point-by-point response to that, which I will submit to Valerie as soon as I have that ready, well before the next hearing.
Perfect.
Okay, so I think that's sort of my summary. With that, I'll turn it over to Adam Wagner from Market Square, who I believe I saw on here. There he is.
And
Adam's
do you mind if I interrupt for 1 second?
Please do.
I just want to make the point that I think Valerie's letter, which is very comprehensive, also includes a bunch of stuff that we've already dealt with the peer review letters. So Jim is going to respond to all of them, but a lot of it has already been incorporated into plans and peer review responses that have been submitted.
And if he acknowledges that, that's perfect too, just so that we have one comprehensive document at some point, so we're not, as we get to a decision or trying to document things that have happened, it'll help us be more efficient toward that at the end.
Yeah, Debbie, thank you very much. That's a great point. I did mention that to Valerie. So where appropriate, I'll point to where there's been a response that'll be more thorough in one of the peer review written responses. Otherwise, I'll provide a standalone response.
Right. And so, Jim, what you mentioned about the town discussion, I know the select board had a hearing last week where they indicated, I believe, that they're have an upcoming meeting to discuss the 580 Main, a lot of the items that you were just talking about on this, so that they have a specific hearing date. I don't recall. I think it may have been the 28th. Valerie may recall what it is, but so before our next hearing, we'll also probably have that too.
That's great. That would be helpful.
Valerie, was that set for the 28th of April? The select board hearing, do you recall?
So to clarify, the zoning board is looking for guidance on town, the priority essentially for the town and what the select board's opinion is on those questions that you've been asking, Jim. I don't recall the exact date. The 28th sounds familiar. I believe it is their last meeting in April. They do typically meet Thursdays. It might be the 21st, but
Okay. I know it's upcoming though, so it'll be in advance of our next scheduled hearing when we ultimately continue at the end of tonight's session to another date.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much. If I may, Mr. Chair, I'll pass it over to Adam Wagner from Market Square now, and Adam's going to walk through the updated elevations and renderings. Just as everyone will recall, we had a meeting with the design review board. We had followed that meeting up with a meeting with this board where we went through largely their comments and got your reaction. And now we've put those pen to paper, and we're going to show those as revised plans here tonight now.
Perfect, thanks.
Adam?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yep. No dogs tonight.
What was that?
No dogs tonight, no.
You're in the other room.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if that's all right.
Perfect.
And hopefully you can see that.
Yep.
Okay. Just really quick, broad brush overview. I don't know how many of these projects you see, but we've got 4 total multifamily buildings, buildings 1, 2, 3, and 4. We've got some garage buildings. We've got a clubhouse, and we've got a mail and parcel room here. So we took the comments from you folks and from the Architectural Review Board, and we've made some modifications to the plans. And I'm just going to touch upon the high points here today. And so I'm going to be jumping around the presentation a little bit. I hope that's okay with you, but it's the best way to describe the modifications that we've made. The first one I wanted to point out on this rendering, we had presented a board and batten system on a portion of the buildings, and it wasn't all that apparent. So we have gone back in and highlighted that in the rendering, so it's a little bit more clear for everyone to see. And I think this slide is pretty indicative of that. And you will see this throughout the presentation on other slides. I'm then going to jump back to the clubhouse building here. So there were 2 main changes to the clubhouse building based on your comments. The first was the window setup here in the gable. And the second, if you'll recall, we had a panel over the main entry here, and we've opened that up as more of a post and beam type structure, more indicative of some of the architecture we see there in Bolton.
Nice.
I am then going to jump here to buildings 1 and 2. And if you will recall, one of the comments was, here in the end bay, we had a single window for the kitchens. And the comment was made that it would be nice to open that up. And so as you'll see here, we have done just that. The other thing that we modified on these buildings is we've brought the Bolton red into the main entries to the building. We did take a look at using the Bolton red for larger portions of these buildings. And what we found is it's just, red is a very dominant color, and it was just a little too much. So a splash here, identifying the entry pieces, we felt was very suitable. I am then gonna jump.
When did you do something with the like the patio? It looks preference-wise, the doors and the windows more lined up.
Yeah, that's a great point. So if I scroll in here, you'll see we added a panel over the top of those doorways to basically flush everything out. Architecturally, it just gives it a little bit more balance.
Yeah. Without enlarging it, just from, I say, optically, it looked like it was a little neater. But
yeah. So the next thing I'm going to show is I'm going to jump here to buildings 3 and 4. This is nice enough to load for me. And if you'll recall, we already had the Bolton red on these buildings. But what we've done is we've added it to the entry doors to create that common thread between buildings 1 and 2 and buildings 3 and 4. So it's consistent throughout the project.
Nice.
I will then jump to slide 22. And here you've got the garage buildings. We have modified these roof pitches to more closely resemble the roof structures that we have on the clubhouse buildings. And then if we back up one slide, we've added a bike storage bay to the garage. Because that was a comment that we received about additional bike storage. So one whole bay has been designated for that. And then lastly, on the garage, we have added an additional handicap bay on the end of garage B here. So we've got a little bit more balance in terms of the number of handicap garage spaces, which was one of the requests.
So how many are, so there's garage, is that how that is now? Or how,
I'm sorry, say that again?
When you say you balance that, how many are there?
So,
one in this.
If I back up here a second. This is garage B. We have one. This is garage C. We do not have one. And then, oops. Where's my garage A? And there's garage A. So
yeah, one in A, one in C.
Yeah, Mr.
Correct.
Chairman, I think we had one originally, and there was a comment or a request that if we could add a second.
Yeah,
That's what
right.
we've done.
So
That was my comment, I think.
That's right.
yep, that's good.
And Adam, if we could just pause real quick. So before we move on from the garage, just a note on the bicycle parking. So just so everybody knows, we'll have racks, wall racks within that bay. So I don't know the exact number, but I mean, it's not that you'll just walk in and put your bike wherever. There'll be racks that you can put the bikes on that we use in several of our properties. Just keep
And those are locking, so that or how does that work? Yeah.
Yeah, so it would typically be like the mail building would be. You'd have a fob that would gain access to that bay.
But would they be individually be locked? So
It could be
you know,
that, They certainly could be, Mr. Chairman. That would be up to the bike owner. They're
Individual,
set up
right,
so that you could put a bike lock on them, certainly.
Okay. Mhm.
And that's what most people do.
Right. Okay.
Sorry, Adam.
No, no worries. So the last building I'll touch upon here is the mail and parcel building. And we've modified the roof to more closely resemble what we're doing on the clubhouse. We've also added a small canopy here. And we've modified the relationship between these windows and the stone base. So it's a little bit more consistent with the other buildings and what we're doing. So these are our minor nuances, if you will. But they're all things based on conversations we've had and conversations we've had with the Architectural Review Board that we believe just tightens up the overall design, makes it more consistent, and makes it a little bit more fitting with Bolton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's nice. Any comments or questions from the board or Valerie? No, hearing none.
It's good to me.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll just add that we will summarize, in writing what those changes were, so that it's not just up to the viewer to see the difference. We'll summarize that. That'd be helpful.
That's great. Yeah, but they did pop out, some of them, clearly, just looking at them from recalling what they were before to now. So it's nice, like you incorporated as much as you did.
Yeah, we think they were great comments and certainly improvements to the project. So we're very pleased.
Yeah, I was going to echo that, Jim. We appreciate the feedback. We spend days, weeks, months staring at these plans, and sometimes it's those small details, the nuance that brings a project into a community. And so we thank you for that feedback.
Good, thanks.
Thanks, Adam. Bart, are you up next to show your plans?
Hello, I am here, but I will need a minute to find my current plan. You want to move to the next thing, and then I'll be ready as soon as we get back.
I was going to go to civil next, so I think we'll bear with you if you don't mind and go with you next.
All right.
The civil discussion is going to be a little bit more in depth.
All right. I forgot I was on my home computer today, so.
No rush. So Liz, you had some good observations on those drawings or the renditions in the prior meetings, like what you see in the second revision.
Yeah, I think they look really nice, actually.
Good, yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Many sessions ago, there was questions raised about additional elevator access for the residents. Now, I understand that the two walk-up buildings would not be feasible for, but have you given any further consideration to putting an elevator in the second of the two buildings in the courtyard, I guess we're calling it?
Yeah, I'll take that question. It's a good question. So we've looked at it. It does require, some adjustment to the building. But I think our biggest response to that, and where we've started with this project being all a walk-up, was that it really would only serve 2 floors of one building. Elevators take up a lot of space and are expensive. And if you look at a 3-story building, right, your first floor doesn't need it, obviously. And so you're now down to that 2 floors of that one building, and sort of the efficiency of adding that is not very good. I would tell you that we, in our experience, I think I said this last time, have found that that's not been a major issue on 3-story buildings, but understand the question and why you'd want to see that generally, but it's more just about efficiency.
All right, I am just about there waiting for the file to open. All right, I am going to share my screen. Thanks for the stall there. Okay, so for landscaping, what we did was we incorporated what we did do was find
or I haven't seen it yet. If you want to just
trees, more flowering trees around the perimeter of the buildings. 2 and 3.
There we go.
All right, yeah, I was breaking up a little bit there. See,
I might have to call in the dogs.
Yeah, okay, I'm back. I think I'm back. I keep getting kicked off for a second here. So I'm not sure where I left off before I was.
I don't know if anybody heard anything yet, Bart.
Okay, so perfect. Then I'll start over. So what I was mentioning is we kind of incorporated we did incorporate any of the minor site revisions into our plan. So that gave us the opportunity to work with the lighting that we had, or we didn't have before, but we have it now. So we were able to incorporate street trees around the buildings with street lights. So we moved some trees in a few locations, but we also added a lot more upright type flowering trees, upright type shade trees in the tighter areas around the building. As we kind of come into the site past the clubhouse, you could see the flowering trees that'll pretty much wrap 3/4 of buildings 1 and 2 between the parking and the buildings. We did add some trees along the top part of our site. We did have some notes about some easements because some of these trees would not be on our property, but we would be working with that as we get into the final design process. Same thing for buildings 3, some more street trees along the parking side of the building. And then also around building 4, we added a little pull-off loading area, more flowering type trees around building 4. The last thing that we did was we worked on the buffers between the manor next door. So you can see we have additional plantings around the back of the mail building, and then more shade trees, clump type trees, and evergreens along the backs of these 2 garages that wrap, garages A and B. I think that's pretty much our updates. So we did take in, all the comments on finding places to get more trees, buffers. And then I think we even had a a few notes about most of the trees that we would be planting would be a large percentage would be native type trees, but we would have some that might not be native, but they would definitely be non-invasive type varieties. And those would be kind of incorporated throughout the site.
Bart, are you able, I'm not seeing the plan on the screen, but I'm not sure if others are.
No, we're not.
Okay.
Oh boy, did I
I
just
didn't
go
want to
through that whole
I
thing?
wasn't sure if it was just me or.
Let's see if I could do this again. Maybe I lost
It was,
the
it was
share.
up there for a brief period of time and then it wasn't.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
All right. Do you want me to run through that again?
I would just at a high level, just pointing to where things are, if you don't mind.
See, I like attention, and we don't usually have a lot to talk about with landscape. So doing it twice is getting me my screen time, I guess. So again, you see the additional trees that we added around buildings 1 and 2. So all the way around the parking. We also added additional shade trees and possibly a buffer at some point once we work out this area with our neighbor. Some of these trees would not be on our site, but that would be worked into our design process later. Building 4, we actually added additional street flowering type trees around both sides. We added the little pull-off loading area, and then a big part of the changes that we did as well were in the buffer between the manor and our property, around the mail building, around the back of garages A and B. So shade trees to get some of the height over the garages, evergreen mix to help buff out some of the back of the garages as well.
That'll look nice from their perspective, looking over toward trees, which would be nice instead of the back of the building. So it's nice.
All right, I think I got it right that third time, so I'm happy.
You did, Bart. Thank you. Persistence
pays off, Bart.
That's what my wife tells me.
Yeah, well, she's a good wife. At least she tells you what you should be doing.
Thanks, Bart. So next up, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to turn it over. Phil, I see you there. Are you prepared to jump in? Phil Cordero from Allen and Major is going to jump in and walk through some site-related changes that came out of previous discussions in the peer review. And then I think he's got some other comments on peer review response as well. So Phil, you can take it away.
Oh, you're on mute.
Can't hear you, Phil. I don't see your mute button, but we can't hear you.
Pivot.
There you go.
Hear me now? I apologize.
There you go.
Is that better? Are you able to hear me now, Mr. Chairman, members of the board?
Yes, loud and clear. Good.
I apologize for that delay. Apparently, we consultants are having technical issues tonight. So let me see if I can just share this.
Good to see it happens at the best.
I'm only going to do it once, though. You get the Bart show 3 times. Try to do this one time only, though.
Okay.
But for the benefit of the commission, just to confirm, everybody is able to see the screen share. It's just our color site plan that you've seen previously. I'm going to walk through some changes on it. But as part of what I wanted to discuss here tonight, really outline that on the civil perspective, we've been dealing with, let's call it three.
Any way you could speak up, Bill?
Yep. So let me move a little bit closer to the microphone. Is that a little bit better?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. So we have been working through 3 buckets of changes on the site plan since our last meeting. One has been relegated to technical matters associated with the Horsley-Witten peer review response to comments. The other has been some operational changes born out of comments from not only Horsley-Witten, but also this board here this evening. And then also traffic comments as they relate to the site planning, as was born out of the Vaness peer review comments. So I'd like to very just quickly go through all three of those, just to get everybody updated as to where we are in the process. Anything that I'm about to present here tonight, we apologize for not having a written response, an updated set of plans back to the board for this meeting, but we're going to have everything delivered and distributed through Valerie likely tomorrow. And then we will solicit Horsley-Witten for follow-up comments. And when we're back in front of you, we hope to have made significant progress, if not have reached the finish line with them. A lot of our changes to the site plan have been additive changes. So things that we have incorporated into the plans, we have included now a sidewalk that's going to take us over to Bolton Country Manor, which will allow connectivity from that development up to Main Street, which was the request of the town planner and some coordination with the board. Jim alluded to it earlier in the presentation. Within the garages, specifically within Garage A, we have added bike storage elements. We have also added within Garage B an additional ADA accessible garage space, which was requested by members of the board. And then panning over to Garage C, we now have another internal bike storage area. So everything has been distributed across the site to provide that bike pedestrian connectivity. We have been working with the applicant on appropriate operational changes to accommodate move-in vehicles for the site. And one of the things that will be expressed on the site plans that will come into the board is in the vicinity of buildings 1 and 2, we have created this modifiable area that's generally parking, but when it needs to be accommodated and available for move-in vehicles, we will have a series of removable bollards that will allow a move-in vehicle to back into these spaces, into the park zone between buildings 1 and 2, and accommodate furniture movement. Now, this will be scheduled through the operational aspect of the site. The on-site property managers will be responsible for coordinating off those spaces and having all of the residents coordinate through them when they're anticipating large deliveries. Similarly, adjacent to building 4, we have created an accommodatable pull-off spot directly in front of the backside of or in the backside of the building for similar purpose. Deliveries, move-ins, and the like, large vehicles that need to be pulled off the roadway for move-in. And then likewise, adjacent to building 3, we have our dumpster and recycling center on the westerly sideline of building 3. We've also striped off areas of pavement that are not allocated to parking that will be used again for those move-in vehicles, large service vehicles that need to access these buildings and provide delivery to the resident. As part of our expansion of the site amenity package, we've allocated an area to the south of building 4, outside of our wellhead protection zones, which are denoted by the darkened circles on the plan. But we've provided an accommodatable area for a playground. The final design of that is to be worked out, but we certainly have a large enough area that we can provide a sizable playground and playground equipment for the children that may inhabit the property. We have also accommodated on the site plans some additional paths, not only for accessibility to snow storage areas for general operations of the site, but we've also added some operational paths now to really hone in and refine what the site needs to operate. In this particular case, this will be a drivable path that will take you to the drinking water supply wellhead, so that way it can be properly maintained. Lastly, through correspondence, we have also provided in front of each building, we have included, they may be very difficult to see on these plans at this scale, but they'll be much more recognizable on the plans as submitted. We have provided in front of each building, there are 2 shareable PEDs, or electric car charging vehicle stations. One is here under the cursor. The other one is slightly obscured by the landscaping. But those two PEDs will provide serviceability for a total of 4 vehicles at each building. And then we're also installing future accommodatable PEDs. So the infrastructure will be in place that if we need additional ECV spaces, we will have 4 accommodatable spaces at each building to be able to provide.
Bill, you froze up.
Yeah, that's good growth planning for as electrical vehicles probably become more popular.
Yeah, that's certainly the future, Mr. Chairman, and we want these properties to be adaptable to that as the fleets grow, certainly.
Yeah, but it's better even as you're doing a building out now versus then having to come and re-disturb or disturb a property that's already there, probably just less interruption down the road.
Yeah, correct. The harder part is putting the infrastructure in below parking and sidewalks and things like that. The easy part is putting in the actual systems later on. So
right.
The planning now is important. I'm guessing Phil logged off and is logging back on.
Mm-hmm.
Rough night for technology.
Well, it beats a lot of the world, right?
So I know he cut out, but I'm curious about these parking spots for the electric cars. Is that the only location that you intend to put those, or are you going to put them around all the buildings, or like a couple around each building?
Yeah, they're spread out. I think when Phil gets back on, he can show where those go. Or Mike, I don't know if you were going to jump in.
Yeah, we're planning 4 spaces per building at occupancy, and then an additional 4 pre-wired for future space to be installed.
So that would be what, 16 in total at occupancy and 16 more. Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
Let's see where apologize for the disruption here. See if I can.
I'll jump in and ask the follow-up on my question about the elevators, Jim. Is it the intent to have deed-restricted affordable units in the elevator building at the same proportion as they are in the other buildings, which would be approximately 25% of the units in each building?
Yeah, yes, through the chair. That's a great question. So yes, so in all of the affordable units will get spread out proportionally throughout the entire property. That is the requirement of the state, and also something that we believe is makes the most sense. So when the time comes to work out an agreement, we'll propose a plan that has the proportional number of 1-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units, 3-bedroom units, ADA compliant units, and then those will get broken up so that they're not all on the same floor, not all in the same building. There's a lot of rules that actually come into play there that we're used to, and to the extent that they generally can't even be across the hall from each other directly and things like that. So it's really
I just want to make sure they have no less access to elevators than any regular rate unit.
Yeah, that's a great question, great point, and that certainly would not be the case. It'll be absolutely proportionate from 75 to 75%, 25%.
Thank you.
Phil's texting me that he's trying to get back on, or it's been trying to get back on. I'm not sure. how much time you want to give them.
Well, I mean, if you had someone else ready to speak to a different topic, if there's something you want to chime in after, he can certainly, take the mic back.
Unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, we don't. He's the anchor on the presentation tonight. Oh, I see him coming back on now.
I could go over the landscape again to.
He already highlighted it. Took you 3 times there back. I don't want him to, have a.
Once you nail it, Bart, you don't want to go again.
Right.
I left him wanting more. Sorry, everybody. Am I back on? I apologize.
Sure.
Yeah. So technical difficulties on my rural end. What I'll do is let me sort of cut to the quick, which is so I went over some of the operational aspects. On the technical aspects, we've provided a full response package to Horsley Witten. We do not believe they were necessarily opposed to the infrastructure and the drainage. We just had to provide some additional detailing, and that'll be fully outlined in the response letter that is going back to them tomorrow. Similarly, for Vanessa Associates, they've recommended the addition of traffic control signage, crossing signage, and striping within the roadways. We have also accommodated that on the revised site plans, so we can say for certain that we have checked all of the boxes with the various reviewers on behalf of the town. So, and then just so I can say it before we lose my connection again, we are in the process with the ANRAD, with the Bolton Conservation Commission. We have filed, and that is underway. And we have our first scheduled site walk with the commissioners tomorrow on property to walk the wetland resource areas. So we'll have more information to report back to the board subsequent to that site walk.
Perfect.
So I apologize. So that's what I have. I don't have visuals anymore, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Phil, if you don't mind, do you want to just touch on a couple of the points on some of the revisions? I don't think you talked about. One comes to mind is the retaining wall. The ones that came out of the peer review, not necessarily out of board comments.
Well, I can, Jim. I actually did talk about them. It was quite extensive and detailed. Obviously, I was only talking to myself at the time. So, one of the comments, Mr. Chair and members of the board, that came out of the Horsley Witten comments is they had identified 2 areas where we were encroaching within the 25-foot no-touch buffer zone under the local Town of Bolton Conservation Commission bylaw. Our revised plans sought to eliminate the encroachment on the 25-foot buffer that is adjacent to Great Brook. I had occasion to meet on site with Valerie and Amy Ball, the environmental scientist from Horsley Witten, to outline our intention to pull our grading and our encroachment away. And without putting words in their mouths, I believe they were both in favor of that because it maintained in totality the 25-foot no-touch buffer on the easterly portion of the site. Where we had the second encroachment was actually along the southerly fire pond. And I think our site walk together, especially in terms of Ms. Ball's perception of the site, really changed her perception that there's not so much a wetland resource area on the southerly portion of the site as far as the stormwater management pond that's existed out there for about 30 years. With that perception in play, she did not feel the encroachment was an issue any further, given that it's likely the commission is going to render that area a stormwater management area as opposed to a wetland resource area, which effectively would eliminate the buffer zone perimeter around it. So those changes will all be reflected on the plans.
Are we able to show those on the maps so everybody can look at what you're talking about?
Yes, so I apologize on my end in that I'm not able to share the screen. Yep, there you go. My associate is there. He's saving the day. Paul, if you could zoom in on the retaining wall, thank you. So the darkened line that's there is the new retaining wall, and that will straddle and parallel the 25-foot buffer a couple of feet off of the face of that buffer line to make sure there's no encroachment there any longer. And then Paul, if you could pan to the southerly fire pond for me.
And how high is that? What is that going to look like?
It's a segmental block retaining wall. It'll be about 5 feet in total height. The actual color and material type has not yet been selected, but it'll be something appropriate. It will largely not be visible from the site since the site will be above that grade. So it would only be visible from the water side or from the wetland side.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then this is the other area that I was referring to. That area where the cursor is moving is the outer edge of the fire pond storage area. And that's currently used as part of the stormwater management system. And with Amy Ball on site, we showed her how that was currently being utilized. The current owner of the land, Bolton Office Park, Condyne, has recently reconstructed some riprap spillways in this area at the request of the Conservation Commission. So with all of those factors in play, they did not feel that what we were proposing was adverse to that area. We will, of course, defer to them, providing that in writing back to the board. But that was the general sense of discussion that we had with them out there on the property.
On that playground area that's to the left of where you were just speaking about, the proposed playground area, is that going to have some type of defined border? So how is that? Is it just free from space, or is that a fence around it? What is that?
So the way so it's not fully programmed right now. The way it's anticipated, it would not be fenced, it would be open, but it would have a border around it. So typically you would provide either timber edging or plastic edging or something similar, and then you would provide a mulch or soft surface underneath the play area. So that would be wholly contained within the gray shaded area that you're seeing on there. But we do still need to program that area out and figure out the exacting elements of it, sir.
Okay, thanks.
It certainly doesn't look like the most fun playground in the world right now, does it?
Well, maybe you had another daughter, so make it a smile or something. Yeah.
So thank you. Happy to answer anything else. I apologize.
Does that answer your questions, Andy?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Can you remind me what those boxes and circles are that are in the 100-foot well thing? Yeah, those right there.
Sure. So we anticipate as part of the public water supply, we do need to create a reservoir of not only public drinking water, but also fire supply water. So those are annotations for the pump house and also storage facilities for that water supply for the sprinkler system for the buildings.
Are there two wells there, and that's why we have two circumferences outlined? Or
that is correct. There will be two wells in that general vicinity. Those darkened circles represent each of the wells, and then there will be a third well to the east of there, which will provide additional drinking water. Again, the darkened circle to the east, right? Yes, right there where the cursor is moving will be our third well on site.
And by those little storage tanks that we were just talking about, I see like a path rendering. So what is that? Or is that just like general access? I know this whole area still kind of needs to be hashed out from an access perspective, but I'm just kind of trying to understand what that is.
Yes. So the area does still need to be hashed out from an access perspective. And we're looking for the feedback and input from the town as to what this finally looks like. On previous application drawings, we showed a connection from the end of the parking lot through a gravel access road to connect to the existing gravel access roads that wrap around behind Bolton Country Manor and on the westerly side of the Florence Sawyer School septic field as an alternate route to get over to the lacrosse fields and the community gardens. So we've carried forth that gravel plan, that gravel path for now, but obviously it needs to be refined as we continue to work with the town.
For that fire storage tank, does that need any particular access for the fire department, or is it just water for?
Yes to both. It is water, and it needs to be accessible to the fire department. So the access path that currently exists that take people out to the lacrosse fields and the community garden, that will stay. We will gate it off because we want to dissuade personal vehicles from going back there any longer, but it needs to remain accessible so maintenance vehicles and the fire department can go back there. And we've also asserted that that access path can remain open for fire and emergency vehicles to utilize it if there's an emergency on the lacrosse fields or at the community garden. So there is a response plan that can be in play for them. We were just dissuading from general all-purpose use, if you will.
So those are allowed uses within that zone area to have emergency vehicles to be able to get within those radii.
Yes, yeah, that will be acceptable to DEP based on our experience and our consultants' experience. Yes.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Mr. Chairman, that concludes our presentation, but obviously happy to answer questions on civil, architectural, or landscape at the board's desire.
So are there going to be more dogs than kids on the site? The dog park looks bigger than the playground.
Generally, that is the case, yes.
Really?
Dogs, we have so many dogs at our properties. You wouldn't believe it. The population of dogs has exploded over the last several years. I'm not sure if those are exactly the scale, but
interesting.
But dogs are very
Where do the
prevalent.
cats play? Right.
Inside.
Hopefully.
Just out of curiosity, for the dogs on site, do you have any restrictions? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you have like size restrictions or breed restrictions or anything like that? Or are you completely pet friendly?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I don't have the answer on which we do not allow at the moment, but there are breed restrictions that our property management group would implement in, when you're leasing. Those would be clear to a future resident when they're coming in to look at the property and lease. So yes, but I don't know off the top of my head which breeds those are.
Interesting. Well, so there's been some good progress, certainly encouraging, taking to heart, the various comments that are offered, from the board or from our consultants or some of the town. It's nice to see it working into the plans, they will make it more receptive as we get closer to, as we said, we'll probably need a extension letter to get us into July, but it'll probably, as we wrap things up, it'll be a much more favorable project, I think, that the town can be, behind.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we think the feedback all the way around has been fantastic. The process has been great from our perspective, and we appreciate all the comments and always try to do our best to incorporate the ones that we can. And I think we were able to do a lot here. And we're proud of that. And, we're thankful for all the feedback so far.
So given the timeframe when you think you'll have new materials, like say some will be submitted tomorrow to Horsey Whitman and whatnot, we're at April 12th right now. Usually Horsey Whitman needs a little time frame to turn things around. So are we looking at early May for our next hearing? works into your calendar for your, you and your team? Did you have any idea when you thought?
I think, Mr. Chairman, I think, we'll be submitting a fair amount of the final written responses in short order here. So again, we had hoped to do that before tonight. Unfortunately, we didn't quite get there, but that'll be happening soon. So I don't think we need much more time on our end to do that. I can't speak for what the turnaround time would be for Horsley Witten or Vanessa on their comments, but I can't imagine it will take them more than a week or two. So I would think something in early May from our perspective would make sense, if that made sense for the board and others.
Right. So, or maybe potentially it would have to be like the first week of May. Town has town meetings and things like that, and they try to schedule out a couple of days of, in case there's any overlap or it runs into 2 days or so. So maybe, Valerie, you have your calendar open. You can look at.
Yes. And I'll also just throw in a few other ideas. I think it's typical for applicants of comprehensive permits to also go to a planning board meeting to just gain feedback from that board directly. I know that I've given you a lot of comments, but I know the planning board may also appreciate that opportunity to consider the site planning. So I can be in contact with you outside of this meeting, but just to set something up if the ZBA is amenable to that or is interested in getting that feedback from the planning board. So that would allow, the next possible time for a planning board meeting is the 27th. So I'm thinking it'd be nice to be able to have some time to kind of synthesize that kind of feedback that we might receive from them. So again, the second week of May probably looks preferable. I'm also thinking that you may, now that you've reviewed some of the architectural plans and elevations, you may also wish to go back to the design review board and kind of get a clear seal of approval from them, which is part of their typical review process as well. So I'm trying to pack as much in as possible between this meeting and the next so that we can get that much further. So if those two meetings could happen before the next zoning board meeting, I think that would be preferable.
Mr. Chairman, is it okay if I just jump in about these additional meetings? I know, and you can kick me, Jim, under the table, but I think at this point, starting, I think the planning board and you have given input, which has been taken, and plus we've had a bunch of input from design review and from the peer reviewers, and have submitted revised and are submitting further revised plans. I think starting at this point with going to the planning board is unnecessary and not really appropriate at this point. I think if you or they wanted us to do that, we should have done that 6 months ago. I don't think that I don't think anything's being missed between Valerie and the comments we got from a whole bunch of people in town and from your peer reviewers and from your consultant who is also an engineer. So I can't imagine that you're missing anything. And we could very well end up in a place where we get conflicting requests from a new board, which puts us all in kind of a funky place.
I'll just defer to this board. I've heard from the planning board chair that is something that they would look to do. They met with, I'll just note that they did meet with the applicant for the Mallard Lane application earlier in that process and essentially decided that the civil was not far enough along for them to provide any further comment at that time. So taking the planning chair's queue on that waited till we had another round of review here. But I hear your point, and if the ZBA feels like they've received enough comment, that's definitely a message I can take back to the planning board. And perhaps a good middle ground would be for me to just provide that kind of presentation of the permit to that board and see if they have any other concerns.
Right. So is it easy? Is it preferable then if the applicant's going to be providing new materials, that materials also get provided to the planning board, and then at that next hearing, if they had any comments, they could then either through a letter back to us or whatever, make their comments known so that it doesn't overly burden the applicant. I mean, technically, yes, there's many meetings are supposed to be held under the ZBA purview, but if they're accommodating with the design review board and others, but certainly we appreciate Attorney Horowitz's concern. But if there's a way to accommodate that without having them start a new hearing process in front of the board, that certainly benefits mine as well as theirs, I'm sure.
And I'm sure, again, speaking out of turn, Jim, so kick me digitally, but I assume our plan anyway would be to either we have or to be submitting these revised plans to design review board, because that we've incorporated a lot of comments that we already got from them.
Yeah, Debbie, I would assume that those either would have been passed along or will be passed along to the design review board. And I think that we've, as you'd mentioned, have hit all the comments or close to all the comments that were provided by that board. So, but yeah, I would think that they would get a chance to review them. But no, I would just echo Debbie's concern about conflicting direction and comments. We've lived through that before. I won't say where, but it's a real problem that we've lived through where we've had conflicting boards comments, and it puts you in a weird spot moving forward, especially this far along in the plan. So I would share that concern, but certainly would love to hear the DRB's roundup on comments of what we've changed, because I would think they'd be happy with what we've put forward.
Right.
So can I maybe suggest? It sounds like everybody is thinking. It still seems like the second week in May may be the right time for the next hearing. It'll give Valerie time to talk to the planning board, DRB, we'll get the plans, the civil, the peer reviewers will have a chance to review. So my suggestion was going to be that since our date is May 6th for the 180 days, that we currently grant a 30-day extension. Let's get us through the next hearing. And then let's see where we are, because I think, of course, I work with developers, so I'm more of an optimistic developer, but I think that we don't need till July, really, to get through the rest of the process. I think if by the next hearing, the peer reviewers have given you comments back that they're satisfied, if our response, Jim's response to Valerie also incorporates that and more, and Joe, I see Joe's back on, and Joe's able to confirm that, I think at that point, remember that you have 40 days after you close the hearing to deliberate and talk about the project, etc. So my suggestion is that we, and again, Jim, I hope it's okay that I'm offering to grant a 30-day extension, and then we see where we are collectively.
So that's a 30-day extension from the current May 6th. So
right.
Okay. And then, as you say, we'll have a hearing between now and then, and if it looks like that's still within the ballpark, then that's fine. And if we need to readdress it at that point, we'll readdress it at that point.
Exactly.
You comfortable with that, Jim?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay.
It's good somebody check my clients. That's good.
Gerard?
Sure, Andy?
Yeah, my thought or consideration is if someone is going before the planning board, whether it's Valerie or somebody else, should they, as the special permit granting authority, sort of acknowledge and assent to what town council is saying, that we will be acting on making waivers to that original special permit, 1986 special permit, so that it's very clear to them what's going to happen, if that's not already been done already.
I'm gonna actually respectfully say no to that. The zoning board sits in the planning board shoes. For these, you don't need the planning board permission to do this. They weren't involved in the original special permit. So I think we'll get, I've been talking with town council. We'll get you comfortable in writing that that's the case. But the planning board isn't in the weeds on this. I don't know what they do and don't understand about this process, but I think it's just right for further confusion.
I can accept that. I just wanted to be very clear from that town council has weighed in on this, and there's nobody saying, wait a minute, this isn't following procedures, since there's an existing older special permit in existence. I want to tread very carefully.
Well, that's a good point, Andy. And I think as long as we, to your point, is Merrick and O'Connell, we get their feedback to the board to say what's clear, then I think they're going to incorporate your concern, is that they're going to say, yes, it lays at our feet, and from there.
If I may, I think it will just clarify things with the planning board when the materials are delivered to the planning department that would satisfy an application for that modification. So essentially, once I get that information, then we would go through the process of setting the public hearing and all of that.
Well,
so
you wouldn't actually have a public hearing, Valerie. We're not asking the planning board to act in a public hearing. They're acting, in this case, in an advisory capacity. So they're getting all the materials. They have to look at them in a public meeting, but it wouldn't be a public hearing and taking any action or vote on a permit or a modification or anything.
For the special permit modification?
No, the zoning board sits in their shoes to do it for 40B. That's actually what we've been talking about.
Okay, so I have not been privy to the conversations with town council, so it's been quite confusing for me. So I would appreciate just hearing a little bit more about that process and getting a little bit more clarification.
Sure. Do you want to do that now? Yeah.
We can. We can do that after, tomorrow or another time. Yeah.
Anytime.
Yeah. As long as by the time we get to the next hearing, that it's clear that if we have to discuss anything about it, that town council's weighed in and that planning board knows that that's what we're doing. And again, they may not have at that point, as long as town council says, it confirms it falls within the ZBA purview, at least everyone knows that that's where it is. So.
The basic rule for a 40B is that the zoning board has jurisdiction to act in the place of all local boards.
That's right.
Mr. Chairman, I'm back. And just a point of clarification. Sorry. The distinction here is the A&R, the approval not required plan, and the separation of the lot into two distinct parcels. And the ZBA has all of the jurisdiction over the 40B parcel, and the planning board retains jurisdiction of the commercial piece. So they don't, the processes that govern the modification of the commercial piece doesn't necessarily have to coincide with the comprehensive permit process, and it's not. I mean, the owner that has retained the commercial piece has not advanced plans, is not proposed to go to planning board for modification of his site. But my guess is that he will have to, and that process has to advance prior to them demolishing the building, and you can't start the 40B until the building's demolished. So there is connectivity between the two, but the distinction is there's a new property line. And on one side of the property line, it's the ZBA's jurisdiction, and on the other side, it's the planning board's jurisdiction. And all the ZBA is being asked to do is speak to those conditions as they affect the 40B parcel. So certainly, I think having that in writing from Debbie, and then have that verified by Merrick O'Connell will kind of put the board's mind at ease that you're in good standing to move forward on that. Planning board may be confused. They are typically, but within the context of the comprehensive permit, all you're asking them for is advisory input. And many planning boards choose not to give ZBAs any input. So I would take what you can from them, but it's still your decision within the confines of that new parcel.
Right. Well, it's good to have you as the resource for keeping us honest there, Joe. Thanks.
Sorry I had to leave for a little while, but I was listening. I was listening and
made it clear
trying to be in there.
Right. You made it clear that you had an obligation, so that's fine. Thank you. Okay, so we're getting close to, well, it's a little bit after 8:30, so not that we can stay on if anything has any new to propose, but I think what we're at is maybe looking at the second week of, so do you have a recommended date, Valerie, that we could potentially have a motion to continue the hearing to?
So the ZBA is meeting on another matter on Monday, May 9th. Don't know what your appetite is for back-to-back meetings.
What was that? Is that Mallard Lane? Or is that just that?
Yes.
No, that's gonna, that one should be a very full night because of where they just now sort of put their stamp on what they're gonna do, and we should be getting a lot of feedback. So probably a second night that week if people have availability.
Right. Yes, I meant I wasn't sure if the ZBA wanted to then meet again on May 10th, which would be quite a bit. I have a planning board meeting the 11th, and then I think I'm free on the Thursday the 12th as well.
I mean, I'd like to break it up a little bit, maybe to the 12th. Schedule-wise, it gives us a little time to just debrief a little bit and just take off our volunteer hat for a night.
Yeah, I would prefer the 12th.
12th work for the team?
Good for me.
It works for me.
Works for me.
Does the 12th work for the applicants team?
Anybody else can speak up. For myself, it's actually my son's birthday that night, but if that must be that, we'll do it.
Not well. I mean, you could have someone stand in your shoes, I'm sure.
Sure.
So
Yeah, sure. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. That sounds like that works for the board. So we'll agree to that date and we'll make that work.
Okay, yeah, but to the extent if you have a family like a child's birthday, take care of that, and I'm sure you have a lot of good resources here. So
yeah,
we can all sing to him, Jim.
Right.
There you go. Valerie, what time would that be at? Do you know yet, or?
So 6 work for the team? Or I know some people have, like, Liz, do you have a time on that one? Do you want to do it at 7 or 6:30?
Thursdays don't matter. I can do any time.
Thursday don't matter. 6:30?
Good.
It's good with me.
So how about the motion to continue to at 6:30?
I make a motion that we schedule the continuance of the hearing till May 12th at 6:30 PM.
Okay.
Second.
Roll call
All
that,
those in
Valerie?
favor? Yep. Brad Reed,
Yes,
Brian Holmes,
Yes.
Andy Kishitz,
Yes.
Gerard Ahern,
Yes.
Gabriella Mano,
Yes.
and Liz, you're not actually a voting member on this, are you? Sorry. All right, so just the 5. Thank you.
And in advance of that, then the applicant will send you, or Deb will send you a letter granting the continuance for that 30 days.
The extension, yes.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so we'll have a convene on May 12th.
Great.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Likewise. Yeah. Okay. So I guess, Val, do you have any admin items? We didn't think we do, but I didn't see any minutes or anything. We're good?
Nope, don't have anything.
All right,
Yeah.
so motion to adjourn, and we can shut our computers off.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Brad. Second. Yeah. Second.
Brian Holmes,
Yes.
Andy Kishitz,
Yes.
Gerard Ahern,
Yes, please.
Elizabeth Hutchins,
Yes.
and Gabriella Mano.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So 8:40. Everyone have a good night, good weekend.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.